Hi, grade nines. Here's the second half of outcome 2 notes. So topic 4, wearing your jeans. So once again, this is all the notes are here, and I'll just go through really quickly. It's not the full lesson. So we know characteristics get passed on from one generation to another, right? And so what we're looking at is heredity. And genetics is the branch of science that deals with the study of inheritance. So of the traits that we're looking at, there's thousands of possibilities for when it's continuous variation. So like height and eye color and wrist circumference, right? There's lots and lots and lots of possibilities there. Skin tone. Okay, if you don't know there's a lot of skin tone, just go and try and check out the cosmetics section at a drugstore. You see there's lots of possibilities. So that's continuous, right? So there's a continuous range of possible traits. And then there's something called discrete traits. So in discrete traits, there is very limited choices, like tongue rolling. You can either roll your tongue or you can't. And so that is a limited number of possibilities. Blood type is another one, limited possibilities. Whether your earlobes are attached or dangling, that's another one where there's only like limited possibilities. Okay, and so that is discrete. I like to call that this or that. We then went ahead and we're doing a lab and looking at inheritance of traits. But I'm not going to do that here because, once again, this is just the notes in case you missed class. You could fill them in, or if you want to preview really quickly what we were doing. It's not the full lesson. And well, it's going to let me go to the next page. There we go. And so in inheritance of traits, there's dominant traits and recessive traits. Dominant traits tend to overpower recessive traits. They also tend to be more common than recessive traits. So if we use a really simple example like eye color, you have two genes for every for your eye color. One comes from mom, one comes from dad. So people who have brown eyes and people who have blue eyes, if they have kids together, their kids usually have brown eyes, therefore showing that brown eye is dominant. And we use a letter, capital B, to show that's the gene for eyes, and we could do a capital to show that it's dominant. Okay, people with blue eyes, though, your eye color tends to get overpowered if you marry someone with brown eyes, and so you have recessive genes, little b. So you have to have both genes come together for the trait to show up. So if you're big B, like over here, you're purebred for brown eyes. Your parents had brown eyes, you have brown eyes. Chances are your kids will have brown eyes. If you are big B, little b, you are brown eyed because big B overpowers the little b, but you're carrying the gene for blue eyes. So, like if your dad had brown eyes and your mom had blue eyes, or vice versa, you are probably big B, little b. You have brown eyes, but you are carrying the gene for blue eyes. However, if you do actually have blue eyes, you are little b, and uh, because you're both recessives, there's nothing over there to overpower it, and your blue eyes show up. So here is a Punnett square. It's genetic uh, square used to analyze what's going on when people decide to have kids. So here's two brown-eyed people, right? And I had to give you this that they carry the gene for blue eyes, right? But they have brown eyes. So this person could give a big B or a little b. This parent could give also a big B or a little b. And then literally you're multiplying them together again. And so big B and big B comes here. So that's a brown-eyed person. And then here, the little b and the big B goes. But whenever you have big B and little b, the big B has to go first. That is a brown-eyed person because this overpowers the blue. And then big B and little b, and that's a brown-eyed person because the brown overpowers the blue. And here, little b, and that is a blue-eyed child, right? Because there's nothing to overpower the recessives. So if there's a dominant gene present, it always overpowers everything else. So you really just have to look at the first letter to figure out whether it's going to be brown or blue. And in this case, the first letter indicates that it would be, I mean, it's a double recessive, so it's going to be blue eyes. And so, I mean, we can try some of these to see. I'm going to have to make that bigger if I'm going to be able to do this. Okay, and so here is we'll go pen. Blue. There is a big B person, big B, having kids with blue-eyed person, little b, We don't use this spot, so we'll cross that out in there. So this is where this goes, big B. This goes here, big B. This one comes around here to little b. And this one also comes around to here, a little b. And then we multiply them together. So we get big B and a little b. And here too, we get a big B and a little b, right? And then this one and this one come together, you get a big B and a little b. And this one come together, and you get a big B and a little b. So that means there is 4 browns, no blues. Let's try another one. Let's try this one. Here's a brown-eyed person, big B, little b, mating with a pure blue-eyed person, little b, little b. So that's where I show the parents. We'll move down so we can show the cross. So this parent, this comes here, right? We have big B there. And this comes here. We have little b there. This one comes over this way. We have little b. And this one comes over to here as well. And we get a little b there. Now we multiply them together. So we get a big B with a little b. We get 2 little b's when we put this and this together. This and this becomes big B with a little b. And then these two together become little b, little b. So this one and this one are brown, so I get 2 browns. And this one and this one is blue, so I get 2 blues. And we did this one already, so I'm not going to do it again. And then this one, same idea, big B, cross with big B, little b. And we don't use that. So these 2 parent parts go here, big B and big B, right? These ones come over here. So you get big B, and you have a little b, and then put them together. Big B, big B, big B, big B, big B, with a little b, big B, with a little b. In this case, they all have the big B's, so there's 4 brown, no blue. So this is an assignment that you're going to do for marks. It's going to be the same idea as the other one. You set up the crosses. Just for the last one, make sure you remember you have to draw everything yourself. I didn't give it to you like I did in these ones. Looking at nature versus nurture is looking at whether traits are inherited or traits are affected by the environment, right? And so it's a combination of both. So purely inherited is nature, like eye color, height, tongue roll. That's purely inherited. You inherit that, you can't change that. Nurture is where the environment has an effect on it as well. Okay, so for example, your tongue rolling, 100% nature. You can't learn how to tongue roll. You either can or you can't. It's controlled by your gene. Okay. Scars. Scars are nurture, right? You don't pass those on to people. You pick them up in your lifetime. But there is some in between. Like your skin color. You do inherit your skin color, a certain base color, but then the environment, if you go out in the sun, that can affect it as well. So right now, scientists agree that both of them affect your traits, and they both have an effect on the expression of your traits. Body mass, same thing. You inherited a certain body size, but then also, depending on what you eat and how active you are, that can change as well. And then looking at our genetic information, DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, sometimes there are changes that happen to them. We call those mutations. And there are chemicals or energies that cause these mutations to happen, mutagens. So mutations are not good or bad, they just are. Sometimes a mutation happens that creates a good trait. Sometimes mutations happen and it creates a trait that's nothing. Sometimes mutations happen and it creates a trait that doesn't help you survive. Sometimes mutations happen and it causes a disease called cancer. Okay, but we actually do need mutations to happen so we can have everybody being, it's so that we can get new traits, right? So that there's variations. So it is an important part of evolution. Okay, we usually talk about mutations in negative ways, but there can be good mutations as well. Okay, and then if you want to read on what is cancer, there's an article on page 43. Cancer is basically a cell that's lost ability to talk with the surrounding cells, and so it thinks it's by itself, so it does asexual reproduction really fast and multiplies, and that's why you get tumors being formed. If we could teach the cells to communicate again, they would stop growing uncontrollably, and that's one way that we could look at in trying to solve the problem uh, or the disease called cancer. Okay, and then that would take you to the end of outcome number 2. And at this point in time, we would be having a quiz, and there is a set of questions that you would be doing as well. Following along in my Google Classroom, I am telling you what assignments we're doing and when we're doing them. So this is really not the forum for that. This is just where all the notes are. Okay, and then yeah, fill in the notes as you need to.